alcoholic, and it's good to be here tonight. Ali, can you hear me? Are we good? Okay, no doubt. We're ready to go. I've been nervous, Ali, ever since you asked me to talk. And I've been sober a long time, and I've talked in front of a lot of groups of people and big groups of people. But for some reason, this particular meeting, since I found it, I have not missed a Tuesday night since. And every speaker who have come, I've gotten fed. Not one time have I come to this meeting and left empty. Not once, man. And so I know that for me, that would make me so nervous because I'm thinking, I can't mess you up. You know how we feel that sometimes. But it don't matter because I'm just going to do my best. And I'm just so grateful to be here tonight, and be able to share my experience, strength, and hope. And I was thinking about what happened to me was, and how I started off. And I always like to tell my wife, but I went to my first FACE meeting last night in 6 months. And I spoke in Pennsylvania. I live in New Jersey. I went to the next state over and I spoke at a group. And, I spoke on the second step. I spoke, and, and it was really interesting to be there because and it was a good sized room. But I'm just so glad to be here tonight. And I think I talked about this thing when I was a kid, growing up. And we talk about cheesecake, right? I talked about this cheesecake situation, right? And I talked about it last night. I could never fathom why would somebody put cheese inside of a cake. I'm a kid, I can't figure that out. Cheese belong on a cheeseburger, and cake should have icing on it. In my mind, I was never going to eat a slice of cheesecake because why? I couldn't fathom what it would taste like. I just could not put my head around it. And I grew up to be a young man, and I'm running around out here and I go to a cookout, take me, and I go to this cookout. And the guy asked me, he said, yeah, I got some cheesecake. You want some? I said, man, I don't eat that crap. And he said, Calvin, just taste it. And I tasted it. And it was the greatest thing I ever tasted. And when you read in this meeting, Herbert Spencer, that was my life. Prior attempt to investigation. I don't know what it tastes like, but I made a conclusion in my mind. This is not good because that's what I think. And when I come in here and I see we the Gnostic, and all it's talking about is my thinking. If I can get another way of thinking, another way of looking at things, but I'm so stuck, I'm so self-absorbed in my way of doing business that I cannot stop. So I didn't start drinking until I was like 21 years old, right? And and what happened to me was as a kid coming up, I'm 13 years old, about 16, I was on probation, right? Because I used to like to, just take the neighbor's car for a ride or do little stuff like that, and I don't know why I did it. I just did it, what I mean? And no drinking or drugging involved, just did it, And what it did was my mother and them did everything in their power to stop me. My mother and them had a little bit of money, right? So they went out and bought me a car that was 2 years old. So I'm only 15, so I stopped doing that. But I still wasn't going to stop because I was maladjusted to life. I never felt like I fit, And so what happened was when I got about 16 years old or so, I met a little girl in school or something, and we ended up eventually having a son. And my son's on here tonight, right? And he's on this line tonight. And my son is now 49 years old. And I think of next month in October 9th. And I knew this boy was going to be everything that I wasn't, because I never felt like I was worth nothing. I wasn't worth much. I could see that. But I knew this kid's going to be worth a lot more than me. But when it came to my feeling good or my kid, I chose feel good. And soon as me and this girl went through some changes because I would just leave her with the kid and go out with my friends and don't come back, and then go out with my friends. And one day she just had enough of this, and she would go and come back to me, go and come back to me. If you love me, I treated you kind of badly. I took hostages, man. I took hostages. So what happened was, somebody ended up with my family, and I ended up with somebody else's family, and and then it was just, and then all the thoughts. I'm not good enough, or I'm too good. I'm just totally, I can see out of what. And when I picked up that first drink, I can remember like it yesterday. I'm 22 years old. Now, I did other things here and there, but nothing that was addictive to me. But when I picked up that drink with all these bad thoughts and this low self-worth, and it shut that noise off in my mind. It shut all that chatter down. It's been going on since I was a kid. And I felt one with the world. I chased that feeling straight into Alcoholics Anonymous. 10 straight years I drunk, and I went downhill real fast and real quick. I ended up with another wife and another family, and but if you don't change, nothing changes, nothing changes. And so nothing changed there. And I just did was drug her downhill with me. I always had a good job. I got a job when I was like 17 years old, 16. And my probation officer told me, said, Calvin, you're a good kid. You have to hang out with the wrong kids. You need to get a job. So I went out looking, nobody hired me. I went to this Fortune 500 company, and they hired me. And I stayed there 39 years. Now, I should have been fired many times. I went there as a kid. Looking back, God has always had his hand on me. Always. I can see it now. It's like when Bill went to the Winchester Cathedral, when he went to that cathedral over there. And every time in his story, when he starts thinking about a spiritual experience or a spiritual awakening, he thinks about that Winchester Cathedral. And he'll mention it throughout his story, and sometimes a little bit more into the book. That feeling he got when he went into that, he was a scared kid. He was over there in World War I, they were blowing each other to pieces. And he just ran into this church because he figured he'd find some peace. And something happened in there. He had some kind of spiritual shift, but it never left him. Now I can see, looking back, I could never see it before, I can see it now. God has always had his hand on me. But I thought it was me. I thought I was slick because I was so self-absorbed and self-centered. I thought it was me doing it, man. Ain't no God here. It's just me. And basically, man, when I first walked into my A meeting, I always wanted to hear the Sackle Babble and everybody talking about drinking and we identifying with each other, doing crazy stuff. And somebody mentioned God, I'm thinking, man, you're in the wrong meeting. You need to go over there or go downstairs to the church, man. We in the A, man, and because that's how much I had, I didn't want to hear nothing about God. And but like I said, for 10 straight years, man, I ran hard. And then I remember, only thing I remember, my oldest brother, there's 3 of us. I'm the youngest, I'm the baby boy. And my oldest brother went to a treatment center. It just didn't work for him. But he went, and he had all the psychoanalysis part of it, but he didn't get the stop drinking part, right? And I knew I was in trouble, and I had a good job, right? So I said, I'm gonna run to this treatment center, so I run up to this treatment center, and I've never been without a drink in 10 years. And I'm 30 years old, 31 years old, and I bounce back fast. We playing golf, and they got swimming pool, we have picnics. I mean, this thing was like Club Med to me for what I was doing. You know what I'm saying? And all I heard was in the group was what I heard and what they said was probably 2 different things. But what I heard was, you can't drink no more. And my mind snapped shut. I think, I ain't got no more to talk about with y'all. Because I just want you to fix this thing, man. So I don't curse people out or, what I mean? I show up on time and I pay my bills or whatever I was supposed to do. And they told me, no, you need not to drink. And they would take us out to these meetings. And I was sitting in a meeting, recovery all around me. But I'm so self-absorbed that I can't hear a word they saying. I can't hear a word they saying. Come back, that was the worst year of my life. I started going to A meetings, right? And when I started going around after I got out of that treatment, I got drunk. I got out on Friday, I got drunk on Sunday. I started going to AA meetings, and I started seeing people that I thought was either dead or in prison, right? And they was in AA getting better. So I knew the answer was kind of here, but and I remember one Saturday morning, I would run all Friday night, and Saturday morning I would run into this AA meeting. And there was a guy in there I used to work with, and they had fired him. He had lost his wife. He had lost everything, driving license. I mean, we both started there as kids, right? And he had lost everything. And he was a guy from New Orleans and stuff, right? We called him Gator, right? And Gator had lost everything. So he asked me, said, give me a ride back up to Edison. I said, sure, man. So I gave him, he said, Calvin, you don't have to go all the way down there like I did. You ain't got to lose everything. And I heard him. I heard him. And he's like my Ebby. He's like my Ebby. What happened was she she told me I'll come back home if you just stop drinking and come to church. So I started going to church with her, right? So I went to church and it was New Year's Eve, 1985 turned into 1986. And I went to a church with her. And I know it was midnight and the tambourine band, and I had been with my dad and I had been drinking all day. You know, my father owned his own business, and after they closed up, that's what they would do. And I had sat there and I got good and drunk. She came and drugged me away and brought me to the wash, had my bath water run and had me some clothes. And she said, we coming, we're gonna bring this New Year's in church. And I went to church and I didn't want to be there. And what happened when I got there, the drunk was coming off me. It started coming down. Now I'm in here and I'm irritable and discontented. And I'm sitting there and that drunk is steady coming off me. And the more it was coming off me, the louder the church was getting. And it was one of them churches where they have tambourines and drums. And I'm thinking, how did I get here? And a woman jumped up with the spirit. And I jumped up with her. And I told her, she won't shut and sit your ass down. And the next day, I didn't know, next day, I didn't know what I did, right? Next day, my daughter was telling me, she was 8 years old at the time, 7 years old. She said, Daddy, you did it this time. And I didn't know what I did. She said, I ain't gonna tell you, but you did it this time. And eventually they told me what I had did. So I said, well, that was the end of my church experience. I was not going back there no more. And they said the next Sunday, his sermon was on people coming to church drunk, coming to the church drunk. So I was done with that. But God was getting me ready for y'all. So 6 months, for about 3 months, something said, you don't need Alcoholics Anonymous, you don't need God, you don't need all this mess, just don't drink. So for about 3 months, I didn't drink. Right, and the spring came, and how the trees started budding, things got pretty. And I said, damn, you made too much of that. And I drink, and it seemed like the insanity was in the bottom under the bottom. When I finished that, it was like I was back to the race, like I had never stopped. Then my last drink. My job closed down for 2 weeks, and I said, so I could wake up, I could come to and pass out. That's what I did. And one night I went to a house, a get together. A girl had a house, and I went there, and there was a guy in there nasty, just like me. And I put the guy in the car, and we went round to my house, and I don't know why I did this. And I always kept a weapon or something because I was always scared somebody was gonna get me. I always had a weapon. And I took the guy around to my house, and I started whacking the dude with the bat. The dude run the street like, what's wrong with this dude? And my mother, she at this time I'm making a lot of money, and my wife making a lot of money, and I'm living with my mother. And I knew me and my mother gonna have that talk in the morning, like that talk that you gotta find somewhere else to go and take your family with you. And I remember that night I was out there fighting. My middle daughter, my middle daughter, she was 8 years old, and she was on my mother's house, sat on a little hill right across from the biggest black church in Somerset County. And my mother was a respectful woman, and everybody seeing her out there trying to stop me in her night clothes. And my daughter sitting in a picture window. She had a big picture window, and my mother's house sat on a little hill, and she looking at me, and I could see her eyes today looking at me like, and she seen me act like this many times. But I knew the gig was up. And I told my mother, I'm going to get some help. And I went back to that treatment center. This time I sat in the front instead of in the back, and things started to click. And I got out of there, and I know I don't want to drink no more. And I started, going around meetings, but I wouldn't jump in the middle of this thing. This is July 26, 1986. I'm sober since July 26, 1986. I just celebrated 34 years in this program. And my I think I'm a fast learner, and I think that I know what I need. I need stuff. So I'm going around AA, so I went out and I bought a brand new Corvette, because I'm making a lot of money now because I can work every day. And I bought a brand new Jeep, and I bought a brand new boat to pull the Jeep to pull the boat, and just a lot of outside. I wear a $500 suit. I was 33 years old. I'm bench pressing 300 something pounds. I'm running 3 miles a day. Everything's outside me. I used to say I was Gucci on the outside and Kmark on the inside. I had nothing. I was empty. I suffer from a soul sickness, and it would eat up material things like you wouldn't believe, And I remember some people around me kept telling me, Calvin, you're dry as dust. You dry as dust. I'm a couple of years sober, couple of years absent from a drink. My life got worse. Not physically. Physically, I got a lot better. But emotionally, my life got worse because I was still nasty. I was still not a nice guy. I still was selfish. And somebody told me, so one day I knew that I had to destroy this marriage, my second marriage, and she was, we had separated a while back, and so I seen this old girl at the coffee pot, right? I said, and she looked real crazy. So, I was crazy, so I think she the one. We kind of hooked up, and when it got interesting, right? I'm running around, and she got pregnant. Now this thing gets real. And my wife, who we're not divorced, but we're not together, she finds out. And she tells me, Calvin, says that you've been in that program a couple of years and it ain't did nothing for you. It has done nothing for you. Now I'm sober. I ain't drinking a drop. No drug, no nothing. Like I said, I can go work every day. I'm physically capable of doing that, but I'm not a sober member of Alcoholics Anonymous. But I didn't understand that back then because I thought it was just all about putting the drink down. I didn't know about the spirit that I needed to grab hold to. I didn't understand that I needed a spiritual shift. I needed a psychic change. I didn't understand none of that. And she told me, she said, you're the same old SOB you always been. You're selfish, you one way. For some reason, somebody would say something like that to me, and I always had some slick words to throw back at them. I spin it around and spin them, and the next thing you know, they go in another direction. I could distract them and send them in a whole other way. But some reason, since I didn't have a drink to hide behind, and now the curtain went up, and the truth comes in. And I sit down, I break down like a baby, and I start to cry. Because I know what she's saying is true. I asked God that day, if you let me live right one more time, I will not live the way I live. And I got involved in the steps of this program. But back then, nobody really knew about the big book as much, not where I come from anyway. It was like a no drink and go to meeting kind of area. So nobody really talked about the spiritual side. They did, but it wasn't nothing like what we do now, And in 1992, I'm like 5 or 6 years sober. I go to Frostburg, Maryland to see Joe and Charlie. And I had a spiritual change in that. And I started chasing them around like a groupie, chasing a band around. They would go to Philadelphia, I go to Philadelphia. They go to New York, I get a group of guys and I go to New York. You know what I'm saying? They go to King of Prussia, I go to King of Prussia. And that's what I did. And I would come back and I would come back to my little town and I would run around like on my soapbox with the big book and yelling, oh God, it was a mess. And because I just didn't know. Don't let the letter crush the spirit. I had no idea. 20-something years later with that, it's a total different story. I matured, and I see everybody around me has matured with that. Now I know it's about love and service, and I know the book pretty well, and I see the power of that book, the God consciousness of it, And what happened was about 10 years ago, I had a second surrender. Not to surrender to alcohol, but a surrender that I had done learned the book and I knew the mechanics of the book, but It was far from me. And I would go to meeting and I could talk all these quotes and say all this good stuff about the book and stuff like that. But it was far from who I was. Not that I wasn't living a whole different life, but it was far. And something, I went to a meeting down there, design. There's 300 people every Sunday down in Neptune. I went down there and there was kids in there with 10, 15, 5 years, and they had caught on fire and I had fell asleep at the wheel. And I knew I wanted what them kids had. I wanted what they had. It didn't matter I had 29 years in the program. I wanted, or 25 years, whatever it was at the time. It didn't matter. I knew I wanted what they had. And so I let a guy take me back through them steps. And I caught on fire. By this time I'm retired. So I could give myself to this program. You know, and I have done just that. And I think about the spiritual awakening that has come about. I think about like my dad, right? I think about my dad. Now I used to take and sell his power tools when I was a kid, you know, handle money, you know, he had pawn shops and something's gonna get pawned, right? And I had a chance to make amends to my dad. And I would ride him around and he was dying. And I would ride him around. I would take him by where he used to work at till he started his own business. Then I'd take him up by the lake and set up on top of a mountain and we would sit there and have lunch together. You know, and he would tell me things like that. He'd tell me like, because he always tell me, the Ruder, he called me Ruder. So Ruder, you're gonna be the alimony kid. So all you're gonna do is chase these women and be the alimony kid. Because I was gonna, if you had a child by me, they were gonna have my last name. That just was the way I was with that. You know, and you're gonna know I'm their father. You're gonna know that. You know? But he always told me, so you're gonna be down. So I told him, now I'm 43 here, me and Lana gonna have my baby boy. We got a daughter together. And Friday, she'll be 28 or 29 years old, 29 years old Friday. That girl she got pregnant will be 29 years old. And my baby boy, I'm 40s, I'm in my early 40s, and my baby boy is getting ready to be born. And I'm thinking I'm too old for this. He said, boy, he said, you raise that boy right here, take care of you when you get old. He'll be there to take care of you. And what he was telling me, because I was there to take care of him. And one day he knew I was a screw up. So one day he called me. He's sitting in the garage picking his guitar, and he could never pick it well. But he was to pick it, and he know he dying. And he called me and said, Rudy, come here, I want to talk to you, son. So I walked in, he said, no, do you believe that there's a God? I said, yeah, Dad. I said, I believe there's a God. I said, for a fact, I know there is one. And I said, at this juncture, you might want to put some faith in it. He was asking his baby boy that he seen do a lot to take the neighbor's car, do a lot of things that just wasn't. Now he asked him, help him find the pathway to his God. Because he knew that shift had happened and I didn't get it from the church. No, I'm not disrespecting no church, but I didn't get it from them. I've talked to a lot of spiritual men in the last 34 years. You know, I talked to a lot of priests. I talked to a lot. I was a chairperson for a few years, 5 years of a retreat house, a retreat group. And so my job was to send them contracts and send me the contract back. And I would settle them in when they come to the retreat house, they would be able to treat. And most of them recovering alcoholics. And when I would ask them, when we go into the room, and I settle them down in it, and we would talk over the weekend, and I would ask them, I said, man, you get vows of charity, poverty, you go somewhere on the rock and study the Bible. I said, why couldn't you stop drinking? If that was the spiritual path. He said, they would tell me, Calvin, we knew God intellectually, but we did not know God in our hearts. AA and the 12 steps put God in our hearts. And that's what the 12 steps do for us, it put God in our hearts. If you work these 12 steps miraculously, because they bring about a psychic change. When Roland Hazard went to see Carl Jung, and he went to Carl Jung and he stayed there a whole year. He learned every working mechanism of his mind. He left before he got out of Europe, he got drunk. He went back to Carl and the doctor told him, said, look here, man, you hopeless, dude. Ain't nothing nobody do for you, Cat. You know, you're hopeless. He said, come on, man, bad doctor visit. Bad doctor visit. And he said, nobody can do. He said, there's a few cases here and there where somebody, you know, they get. He said, how do I do it? He said, I'm a religious guy. He said, I'm not talking about that. He said, I'm not talking about that. He said, it's like getting hit by lightning. Nobody understood how it comes. Bill Wilson somehow came up with the 12th step. I know how he did it. came up with the 12 steps. And they give us that psychic change. And I know for a fact, because I've seen it and I've had taken people through the steps and I watched them wake up. I had a guy I was taking through the steps. I wasn't a sponsor, he just asked me to take him through the steps and I did. Good guy, man. He's over all the bridges and tunnels and go into New York, right? And he sat there. So I started prompting you about what is your connection to God? You know what I mean? When I get around to like there's a solution, I start asking little questions and stuff. Because I know the biggie coming and we're Gnostic, God is or God isn't. I know that's coming. You know, that's a bold question, right? And they usually kind of shake a person, you know. So I started from, he said, Calvin, I'm gonna tell you something. He said, I don't believe in God. He said, but I believe you do. He said, I'm gonna take the action. And he did. He did a fourth and a fifth step, and he went back in the eighth and ninth step and started paying back and straightening people out and straightening up things. And he came back and said, Calvin, I believe in God. I ain't gotta tell him, just take him through the steps. And God will show him that he's there. If you just, it's like you said, we just seek. But we're gonna talk about God consciousness now, and I think about the consciousness of God. Today is the most important thing to me, to be conscious of that there's a power work in my life, and I gotta always remember they work in my children's life too. And I think about, I'm gonna say one more little story about my oldest son, and he's on this line tonight. And when he was about 8 or 9 years old, he lived in Jacksonville, Florida, and his mother would send him to me every summer, and I would send him back at the end of the summer. He would go stay around with Geraldine for a while. That was his first babysitter and stuff. And he would just and he always been a naturally spiritual kid, good kid, always, just a good kid. And one time, before I was going to send him home, a plane crashed up in Newark Airport. About a week, couple days before that. Me and him driving the turnpike, I was 10, 11 years old. We driving up the turnpike and taking him to Newark Airport. And he turns and looks at me and said, Daddy, I don't want to get on that plane. I don't want to die. And I said, son, ain't nothing going to happen to you. Because his daddy said so. Because his father said so. He got on that plane like it was nothing. He put his shoulders back and squared his shoulders up, put his head up, and got on that plane and didn't think about it no more. And if I can trust my God like he trusted me, if I can just trust my God like he trusted me. I was thinking about, my mother lived, like I said, up in Somerset, and it's a double lane road. And every Sunday, the church is so big, there's a couple thousand congregation. So they have a cop there, and the cop blocks off one lane. It's a 4-lane road. They blocks off one of the lanes so that people could cross without getting hurt, And so the traffic backs up every Sunday. So I'm in the lane because I know that the right lane is going to be shut down because that's where he puts his car at, and he turns the lights on. He sits there, and I got to turn as soon as I go by him because the street's right there. So I'm standing there. I got my car, and I'm waiting my turn. A guy flies up beside me. He's just like, I'm gonna get in front of you, and I'm thinking, no, you're not. I just sat here for 10 minutes. You're not doing this, dude. This ain't happening. And I just never paid attention. But I knew the only way you get in front of me, you crash into me. Now that's an insane thought, right? But I didn't care. The guy in front of me moved up, I moved right up on his bumper. I'm sober a long time. And I'm working steps. He moved, the other guy moved up, I moved right up on his bumper. And something came out like it came out of the sky. It said, you stop this and you stop it now. I just said it. And I backed away from him and let him get in front of me. And I've never done it again. And that's how God removed my defect. And that's how my consciousness works. The other day I was telling my friends, I was in the alleyway. My garage sits off a little alleyway at our house, me and Lana's house. And I'm sitting there, and a guy parked in the alleyway. You don't supposed to park there. There's no parking. Got a big sign saying no parking anytime, right? So he parks there right there. Now I can get out, but I'm going to be the alley police, right? So I go and tell him, yo, man, you shouldn't park here. He told me, he said, he said, he told me what to do with that, and I kind of said a word, and then I got in my car and I just backed all over. And I got down to the corner, and before I got to the corner, I knew, you made a mess back there, Calvin. You made a mess back there. And I knew when I got back from that store, I was going to go back and fix that with him. And that's how my consciousnness works. I can't do the behavior that I used to do and be all right with it. It just don't work no more. Luckily, he wasn't there, because sometimes I always tell my guys I work with or sponsor, I said, never clean the stove while it's hot. Just don't do it. You know what I mean? sometimes it's not a good thing because it'll just heat back up and you'll get burnt. So I know, but I knew that as soon as I see him, I did see him, and I had a chance to say, "Hey, man, I'm sorry. I shouldn't have said nothing to you. Forgive me for. And he said, "No, it's okay. It's all good. But that's how it comes to me like that. It keeps coming to my spirit of how to live and how to live upright. And we struggle now, me and Lana, sometimes because our baby boy had gotten some trouble. He got in trouble a couple of years back, and I remember the night he got in trouble. The night that it started, he had a pocket full of Xanax. And my son-in-law called me and said, "Daddy," said "Mr. Sexton, Paul, my boy he's down here, and the cops got him." And me and Lana jump in the car. It's about 12:30 at night. We jump in the car, go down there, and he's sitting in the back of the police car handcuffed. And I never seen a handcuff on my boy before. And I cut him loose from Lana. And I mean, I'd spend every minute with this boy much as I could. And I lost it. I just lost it. Luckily, I didn't get shot down there that night. I didn't go real crazy, but I just like, no, y'all let my boy go. I didn't know I could love nothing that much as I love my children as I do today. And my wife, Lana, kept telling me, to Calvin, please, stop. And to that boy yelled back to that car, I said, "Daddy, stop." Then I heard him. It's like somebody slapped me. And I said, why did I do that? So I can't tell you what will happen, but I can just say, ask God, please don't let me do that again. Don't let me do that again. The day I sit here and I sit here and I did a lot of meditation. I did a lot of rocking backwards and forwards. And like I shared last week, everything I've done to somebody else, I've been sober long enough to feel that somebody has done it back to me. And I can laugh and smile and say, I see what they felt when I did that to them. And I just know that for myself, it's just the greatest feeling to know that I think about when me and Lana, and it was an old timer, and 10 years ago, I had open heart surgery. I had never been sick before in my life, and I had open heart surgery. And they had to take me in the hospital for a month to stabilize me before they did the surgery. And the night before the surgery, I was the first one at 5:30. And what would happen was, I wake up hour and hour. An old man had told me once, I was going to see him and sit in the dark with him. He was sober a long time when I was a Pee-wee in the program. And he would tell me he was dying in the hospital. And he told me, he said, "Calvin," he was in there. And he said, "Calvin," he said, "I took my eye off God and I put it on these doctors." And his voice kept coming to me all night long. And when I wake up, I would think about him and think about what he had told me, and I go back to sleep. At 5:30, my son is online now, my daughter, and my wife was sitting there, and they took me, and I wasn't scared. I just went on. And that same guy told me early on when Lana got pregnant with Karen, when my daughter's will be 29 Friday, when he told me, when he knew she was pregnant, he said, "What are you doing, boy? What are you doing?" And I would take him home, and he would tell me, and I tell him, I said, "It's too late for all that beating up stuff, man." And I said, "What can I do, man? Can we make it in AA?" He said, "Calvin, you can make it." He said, "But you must live among spiritual principles." He said, "Because," I said, "Why, Bill?" He said, "Because we're too nasty without." Me and Lana had a struggle in this thing for a long time. Diapers would come. Not that we were physically fighting, but we were arguing. The kids would go to sleep, fall asleep in school. I picked up them steps and I started getting quiet. And apparently she loved me because she picked up the steps and she started to get quiet. And our journey's been sweet. It's been ups and downs, but our journey's been sweet. We've been together over 30 years, and we met in Alcoholics Anonymous. And we've been together over 30 years in this program. And today, man, she's like my road dog. I don't go nowhere without her, man. We went to Pennsylvania yesterday. We were sitting down here earlier just talking. And I got a relationship with her that I never had with another human being because of the steps. And she worked these steps and I worked these steps. And my God, we come together as one whole. We work hard at not hurting each other, man. I got an oldest daughter. She's on this line too. She's 7 years old in this program. 7 years. She wouldn't talk to me for 5 years. She wouldn't not speak a word to me. You know, she got drunk and she called me up and told me, the daddy. She said, you know, God knows what you were saying. I said, D, you drunk? You been drinking? She said, Daddy. She said, yeah. I said, well, I ain't gonna talk long. I don't talk to drunk people. I just don't do it. They ain't gonna remember and they're gonna aggravate you. So I just don't do it. So she said, you know, I said, I'm gonna hang up. You know, and then about the third time, I hang that phone up. And she called me back and leave these crazy messages. I wouldn't listen to them, but I wouldn't put it in my psyche, right? I said, I'm not, I just delete them. But about 7 years ago, she called me. She called me. She said, Dad, I'm suffering from this disease of alcoholism. And I told her, I said, go to a meeting, lunch meeting, because it was in the morning, and tell them what you took, because she lives in Pennsylvania. And she went, and the night, I think she walked to the next meeting, and she ain't looked back. She found a step sponsor, took her through the book. We get on the phone, we talk for hours now. I mean, we are close like that. You know, I'm close with my children. I got 7 kids, and I got, you know, I got 11 grandkids, and I know each and one of my grandkids. I know them. I talk to the parents. I know if I can't see them, I always, and the little ones around me, they always right up under me. And I'm gonna say this one more story that, you know, and my daughter's serving it, and I mean, her life is definitely turning around. Definitely turning around. But I got my youngest grandson, right? His name is Trey. And Trey was going to graduate, you know, preschool. I don't know nothing about preschool, but I know that when I graduated, we only had kindergarten, right? Now they got preschool, right? They go to preschool and they, you know. So he graduated from preschool. So a lot of times he said, come on, Cam. I ain't going. I'll wait till you graduate from kindergarten, then I'll go. She's like, no, can you come on? You know, so I said, no. She said, okay. So she leaves out. So now the guilt get me. I run down, I get dressed, take a shower, get dressed, run downstairs, and she takes me up. We go there and I sit in these little chairs, and I'm a big dude, and I'm sitting in these chairs, and that boy come out on that stage. He didn't take his eyes off his pop, his grandpa, from the moment he walked on that stage until he walked off. And see, if I wouldn't have been there, I would have missed that forever. My selfishness would have kept me away from that. I'd missed it forever. And I like to always talk about my sponsor, Barney, man. He's a close friend of mine, man, and we just, you know, and my brother was dying, you know, 8 years ago in cancer. I took care of him every moment. I was there in real time. And my brother was ornery, man. My brother right over me. And I would go in the sit in the hospital with him. And I go out in the hallway and call Barney. I said, I can't do this, man. He'd be yelling at me, cursing at me. I couldn't do nothing right. You know, I said, I can't take it. He said, he wants you there. He wants you there. I went back in there and I would sit there and watch. Then he would calm on down. Because I just sat through the rage and he calmed on down. And every day I would go to leave him. And I would stay there a long time with him. Because all he had was me. And I would pull his hair back and I would kiss him on his forehead. He would, and so about the 5th or 6th day of that, I would ready to leave and I would go over to him. And when I get to him, he would raise up for me to kiss him. And I showed one for good sponsorship and people around me that know this program when I can't see it, that help me and help my consciousness, you know, and I grab hope. And the biggest thing is like, I just keep trying to carry this message to somebody else that's sick and suffering. I don't know, man, on this time thing, but, you know, I think I'm almost about done. You know, I was telling, I had a guy speak for that I group. He said, when I was finished, I said, when the tank's empty, man,